Set in the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains, Asheville, North Carolina has been everything from a primitive outpost to the home of the social elite of the 1800s to a vibrant art colony. Today, it is a bustling community full of some pretty eclectic characters. We'll take you to see it all and indulge your curiosity. You know how when you're a kid and all you ask is why? Well, I never quite outgrew that whole quest for knowledge phase. In fact, I've made a career out of asking who, what, where, why, and how as an arts and travel reporter for the past 20 years. So, if I have an insatiable curiosity about the exciting, inspiring, beautiful world of art, architecture, and hidden history all around us, I bet you do too. This isn't your typical what to do on a vacation travel show. Oh no. This is your all-access pass to a deeper understanding of the world's great art and architecture, people and places, history, and how did they do that. So come along on our educational journey, our field trip for grown-ups who have never quite grown up, and learn with Curious Traveler. Curious Traveler is made possible by
Oceana Cruises. We explore the majestic Mediterranean, ancient empires, artistic discoveries, worldwide cuisine. Your world awaits your discovery. Oceana Cruises. Your world, your way. OceanaCruises.com.
Pocket Protein, liquid protein on the go, designed for travel. PocketProtein.com.
Anatomy. European traveling clothing for women. Your adventure, your style. Anatomy.com.
Today, we will take you to experience the largest private home in America. We'll stroll through Asheville's best public parks and be wowed by its Art Deco architecture. Then we'll tap our toes to some authentic mountain music. We'll paint our emotions on canvas, create works of art with our breath, and then we will take your breath away with the gorgeous views of the nature that started this vibrant town. Asheville is located in the western part of North Carolina, surrounded by the Pisgah National Forest and the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, with that historic Blue Ridge Parkway circling it all. Today, we will visit the heart of this vibrant, artsy city to experience the real Asheville. After the railroad arrived in 1880, Asheville was transformed into a resort town and a center for therapeutic health treatments. Asheville became a mecca for visitors wishing for a mountain escape, with its populations climbing to more than 10,000 in 1890 and its elite summer people numbering nearly 30,000. And the most influential of those summer people was a 25-year-old named George Washington Vanderbilt, which brings us to our first stop, America's largest home sweet home. Asheville started out in 1797 as a primitive outpost for the likes of Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone. Fast forward to today, and it is a vibrant community with amazing art and architecture everywhere you look, including one really, really big house. Told you it was big. Here's what I'm curious about at the Biltmore Estate. Why did someone build a French castle in the heart of America's South? Is that staircase floating? Why is this place called Biltmore? And why do I feel like I'm walking through a painting? Honey, I'm home. George W. Vanderbilt was well-traveled, so it says a lot that he thought Asheville to be the most beautiful city in the world. He bought 125,000 acres of land here to begin one of the largest undertakings in the history of American residential architecture. And famed architect Richard Morris Hunt was just the man for the job.
Vanderbilt and Hunt went to Europe. They traveled through to see these great chateaus, through the English country houses, and took a little bit of everything they saw and brought it here. So it's an expression of this European tradition, but really with a lot of American roots.
Vanderbilt and Hunt decided to build a French Renaissance chateau modeled after those of the 16th century in the Loire Valley of France. And those good old American roots can be seen in the Indiana limestone brought in by train. Every single piece of limestone is hand-worked by talented stone carvers and artisans. And on Christmas Eve in 1895, the Biltmore House was completed and open to guests. And this not-so-humble abode is big, and I mean big. A 780-foot facade caps off the home of 11 million bricks. There's 250 rooms with 35 guest and family rooms, 43 bathrooms, 65 fireplaces, and 3 kitchens. It's all set on 4 acres and covers 175,000 square feet. That is a lot of walking. In case you ever wondered how the Vanderbilt stayed in such good shape, it's called
The Vanderbilt Workout.
A great starting point for your grand tour is the massive stone spiral staircase, using European floating staircase engineering where there doesn't appear to be any structural support. Let's see how much support there really is. 102 steps later, look down at that famous 55-foot chandelier with 72 electric light bulbs. Remember, this was at a time when most American homes didn't even have one light bulb.
It's the centerpiece in a lot of ways, particularly of the staircase, but of Biltmore House. It is suspended from a single point. It's a little bit scary, and it's about 1,700 pounds when you're down at the bottom. It's a phenomenal piece of hand-wrought ironwork.
Within the labyrinth of the estate, there are so many grand areas and intricate details to enjoy. Vanderbilt happily spent many years and many family dollars collecting fine antiques and priceless works of art from around the world. Behold the formal banquet hall with priceless Flemish tapestries. No elbows on the table here, please. And the family library. Venetian artists were commissioned for the ceiling. They painted in sections on the floor first, so there was none of that Michelangelo painting on his back kind of thing. Up through the ceiling to the rooftop we go. Here's an insider's tip. The Biltmore offers a special behind-the-scenes Biltmore House Architects Tour. You'll get a true appreciation for this supersized work of art. And from this vantage point, you can see the great details from those European inspirations. Like the gargoyles, designs were drawn from medieval and Renaissance traditions, but the artists were also encouraged to express themselves a little bit.
One of my favorite ones is a little bear with a pot of honey just facing the front facade, and it's, you know, it's appropriate. We're in the middle of Appalachia, we're in the middle of the mountains, surrounded by these beautiful bears. So it's something that you wouldn't maybe see on a French Renaissance chateau, but it makes sense here.
It's absolutely incredible. So you have views of all the ornate decor here, and then la. Is that the official word for it?
It is.
It's just so cool over here.
Here's another interesting detail to keep an eye out for here on the rooftop. Old George didn't have an ego per se, but he sure did like to mark his territory.
If you look really closely, George's monogram, GV, is there.
And there, and there, and there, thousands of times throughout the home. From the rooftop down to the basement, the Biltmore Archives Room is not offered as a public tour. In fact, this is one of the few times this area has ever been allowed to be filmed.
This is an original drawing from 1890, stamped and dated in 1892. This isn't the final product, so you'll see if you look closely things missing. But what you see is the great staircase, borrowed from Chateau Bois, a roof line inspired by Chenonceau, also Chambord. You see different elements of different great houses coming out here.
From this to this, after 5 years and 1 million man-hours of labor, America's largest home sweet home was born. And it remains the largest private residence in the country today. Now, what would go perfectly with a house of this caliber? A humble English garden? Nah. So Vanderbilt figured if he was hiring the best architect to build his home, he should hire the best landscape architect to build his gardens too, right? Well, that's exactly what he did. New York City's Central Park, the grounds of the U.S. Capitol, and here, the Biltmore Gardens. Frederick Law Olmsted, the pioneer of landscape architecture, created them all with a specific vision for people like you and me to enjoy nature, get back in touch, and most importantly, and I quote, to restore our sanity. I'm feeling a little less insane already. From this 4-acre English walled garden to the formal beauty of the 16th century Italian garden, with 3 reflecting pools, of course, to the breathtaking presence of ancient trees in America's first managed forests, Biltmore's 125,000 acres and those gardens was landscape architect Frederick Law Olmsted's last and largest project, and is a living tribute to his genius. Today, horticultural experts like Biltmore Gardens director Parker Andes continually works to preserve the original version for the gardens and grounds, including the All-America Rose Garden featuring more than 250 varieties.
Our goal is that a guest today experiences the same feel, that same emotional connection to a gentleman's backyard that you would have gotten in the 1890s.
And what a backyard it is, a true walk back in time. Many of the flowers and plants are the exact same species, growing in the exact same spot as they were in the 1890s. Today, you'll feel as if you're walking through a paint-by-numbers work of art.
Another part that's interesting, people will notice when you come through, you're like, oh, look, there's this broad, paintbrush of yellow and pink and white. That's all intentional.
Very intentional. If you look at this original plan from the 1890s for the shrub garden, and you look at the plant list and how they're laid out, and it's laid out in this long, wonderful movement of color. So at that time, if you were walking through, you'd see this one long pink there, and then over here you'd see another long linear line of pink, and maybe a yellow up here. Very much designed for appeal and beauty, but also an emotional feel that carried you through the garden.
You feel like you're walking through a living piece of art.
That is exactly the way Olmsted wanted you to feel, but he didn't want the art in front of you, he just wanted you to feel it.
After immersing yourself in all this living art and grand design, it's hard to remember that this was still just somebody's backyard. Time for our Why Is That There moment. As you stroll around the Biltmore Estate and Gardens, you may wonder, who the heck are the Biltmores anyway? Well, the name Biltmore comes from Bilt, where the Vanderbilt family is from. It's an old region in Holland. Vanderbilt literally translates to of the built. And more, well, that's a different spelling of M-O-O-R. Of course, an old Anglo-Saxon word for open rolling land, the type of land right here in Asheville. So, after creating the masterpiece of the Biltmore, most people probably say, that's enough accomplishment for one lifetime. But not these architects. They went on to create many architectural gems right here in downtown Asheville. And today, Asheville boasts the most Art Deco architecture in the entire Southeast. Well, except for Miami Beach, but at least here, you will not find any tacky plastic pink flamingos. Here's what I'm curious about with Asheville's famous architects. Why do those ceiling tiles look like a New York City subway? Why does the roof look like it's melting? And did I see people walk into a chimney? So, why are there so many architectural gems in Asheville? Believe it or not, it's all thanks to the Great Depression. After the market crash of 1929, Asheville was so poor for so long that they didn't have enough money to tear down the old buildings and build new ones. And thank goodness they didn't. Economic tragedy turned into an American architectural treasure. Today, to make this public art treasure accessible to all, city leaders created Asheville's Urban Trail. It's an easy 1.7-mile walking tour with 30 stops featuring public art functioning as landmarks. Along the trail, you'll see Douglas Ellington's 1928 Art Deco City Hall, which, with its colored mission tiles of green, red, orange, and pink, locals say kind of looks like a birthday cake. Next, you'll see the 1924 Neo-Gothic Jackson Building, which, at 13 stories high, was once the tallest skyscraper in North Carolina. And just to mix things up, there's also the ultra-modern I.M. Pei Biltmore Building. But if all this looking up gets you lost, just look down. The Urban Trail includes these nifty pink granite sidewalk markers representing Asheville's distinct time periods. The eagle represents the age of diversity, the courthouse for the era of civic pride, and the angel represents the times of Thomas Wolfe. And the influence of the Biltmore continues on at the Basilica of St. Lawrence, a National Historic Site and one of only 35 basilicas in the entire country. Raphael Guastavino was one of the Biltmore architects and went on to create his beloved basilica. A pioneer, he developed a new technique called cohesive construction, which is still used today. He loved this project so much, he decided to be buried here. Completed in 1909, there are endless sacred images, stunning stained glass, created by German and Italian artists and artisans. And no matter your faith, you will be pulled in by the serenity and inspiration all around you. But to see what makes this church truly historic, you have to look up. Obviously, one of the most prominent features, you walk in and you look up.
Oh, that dome, yes.
And the largest freestanding dome?
It's the largest elliptical dome freestanding in the United States, well, in North America, in the Americas. It's 82 feet in length and 58 feet wide, and it's absolutely marvelous.
And it stays marvelous, thanks to the help of a little mathematical genius.
It rises from a beautiful crown in a herringbone pattern, which mathematicians say is wonderful until you superimpose the cross that's inset in it, And mathematically, they say they can't understand why it doesn't fall down.
Maybe a little divine intervention is at play. And as a bonus, this beauty provides a feast for the eyes as well as the ears. It's kind of the reason why we can hear the choir so well.
Exactly. The acoustics are perfect in a basilica. The curved dome is the reason that sound travels so beautifully. But basilicas were patterned after a Roman court, and everybody could hear what was going on, very, very necessary. And it works beautifully because something said in the front of the church can be heard in the last pew, and that's an essential.
So be careful what you're saying when you're here at
That's right.
that service. Time for our "Why is that there?" moment. Does that herringbone pattern look familiar? Yes, those are just like those famous New York City subway tiles. So why are they here in this North Carolina church? Well, old Guastavino did a whole lot before he decided to lay himself to rest here in 1908. Born in Spain, he moved to New York in 1881. In 1885, he patented his tile arch system, which is found in some of New York's most prominent Beaux-Arts landmarks, like Grand Central's Oyster Bar, Ellis Island's Grand Hall, and New York City Hall's subway station. You can also find his work in National Historic Sites across the country, like in Pittsburgh's Cathedral of Learning. While Guastavino was creating the Basilica of St. Lawrence, many of the Biltmore stoneworkers and artisans went on to work for another architect on Asheville's historic Grove Park Inn. Self-made millionaire Edwin Wiley Grove first arrived in Asheville in 1900. He found the climate so appealing, he decided to purchase a large chunk of Sunset Mountain. Well, I mean, hey, don't we all do that on vacation? His vision to create a magnificent lodge that mirrored the majesty of the Blue Ridge Mountains. He partnered with his son-in-law, Fred L. Seeley.
When Grove and Seeley were designing the hotel, they wanted to stay true to what brought people here in the first place, which was the natural setting in the mountains, the fresh air and the water, and the peacefulness and tranquility of getting away to the mountains.
The inn was built in 5 sections that joined end to end and stepped terrace-like along the mountain ridge. Native uncut granite boulders quarried from Sunset Mountain form the walled surfaces and chimneys. And up here on that rooftop is our "Why is that there?" moment. Wondering why the famous Grove Park Inn roof looks like it's melting? Well, legend has it that to stay true to its natural setting, Grove designed the roof to look like a melting snow-capped mountain. How cool. The inn was built in less than a year, and in 1913, the Grove Park Inn opened for business. When you come inside today, you will enter the Great Hall, named so for good reason. It measures 120 feet across with 24-foot ceilings and 2 gigantic 14-foot stone fireplaces. And the Great Hall is a great place to sit back and relax and imagine what it was like here 100 years ago. And throughout the lobby, keep an eye out for these great words of inspiration from noted authors and historical figures, all etched into the stone. Looking for the elevator? Well, it's cleverly hidden in the fireplace. You'll feel a bit like Santa Claus scooting up and down the chimney to your room. In the rooms and throughout the inn, you'll notice the arts and crafts movement influences. In fact, the Grove Park Inn is home to the world's largest collection of arts and crafts furniture. And when you sleep steeped in history here, you'll be in good company. The likes of Franklin D. Roosevelt, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, and F. Scott Fitzgerald all slept here. Now that's a slumber party. Now that we're well rested, time to get curious about the history of Asheville's thriving art and music scene. Why is Asheville so artsy? And ever wondered why it's Southern people that like country music? Well, that's an Asheville curiosity too. Asheville is known as an art colony with a rich history of artists and artisans. Folk art is alive and well here. The Southern Highland Craft Guild was chartered in 1930, providing artists with a way to make a living during the Depression. Today, Asheville is a top arts destination with hundreds of art galleries and the ever-popular River Arts District along the French Broad River, with more than 165 artists here in unique, funky, turn-of-the-century buildings. The best part? These are working art studios, so you're welcome to come on in and meet the artists. Artist Jonas Gerard was born in Casablanca, has had his work on display in the Smithsonian Institute, also in Norway, Germany, and France, but he prefers to create his masterpieces right here in Asheville. And if you're lucky, you can even get a front row seat as a new piece is born. It's sort of overstating the obvious, but getting to watch you create the piece as well as appreciating the final piece, it's a whole different ballgame.
It kind of is, yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Why do you allow people to see you do your work?
Very good question. I want people to see the moment of creativity. You go to a museum, you see it's been done. You read a book, it's been written. You read a poem, it's been written. But what happened during the process? What happened when Van Gogh painted? What happened when anyone picked up? It would be great to see that, the process of creativity. And I always wanted to be in show business, but didn't make it.
You are.
So this is it.
Yeah. And what a show it is, a rare glimpse into emotion being put on canvas. Another River Arts District gem is the Asheville Glass Center. Set up in a funky warehouse in the River Arts District, the Asheville Glass Center artists have nearly 50 years' experience in the art of glass blowing. You can take a class or just enjoy watching the glass artists working in the cold shop and hot shop. And we do mean hot. The glass has to be heated to at least 2,000 degrees to remain molten. The artist is rolling the glob of liquid glass into fragments on a different colored glass to ultimately create the polka dot effect you see here. This artist is creating a mixed media piece using sticks of glass as paintbrushes. She melts them slightly so the tips are kind of liquidy, then paints away. These colors, by the way, are only made in Venice and are shipped here to Asheville. And to think, this vibrant international art scene all started from a few resourceful mountain women trying to make a living with scarce resources but ample talents. And legend has it, while they were weaving up there in the mountains, they were singing too. Asheville's music scene is a vital piece of the city's culture. From African ceremonial to reviving ancient crystal singing bowls, a form of musical therapy with a modern new agey twist, perfect for Asheville's artsy, funky music scene. But the biggest musical influence on Asheville began centuries ago, right here in the Appalachian Mountains. When Scotch-Irish immigrants settled here in the 1700s and 1800s, they brought their Anglo-Celtic folk ballads with them. They filled the hills with their sounds, and although the name for this type of music has changed a bit over the years, from Celtic ballads to mountain music to folk music to American bluegrass, you can still hear the original influences today around Asheville.
How can I run, Lord, Lord, when the wind don't blow?
It's been passed down through our culture. It evolves as it goes through, but I think it was originally based in the Scottish and Irish and English roots here, especially the ballad singing that you find in Madison County. But of course, when Bill Monroe came along in the 1940s, he, along with another North Carolina boy from Shelby, North Carolina, Earl Scruggs, put it into overdrive and gave us what we consider to be the new mountain music, bluegrass.
And that's another perfect "why is that there" moment. The next time you're listening to modern American country music, now you will know that it is all thanks to those English, Scottish, and Irish immigrants who brought their musical heritage and talents to create a whole new American genre of music, right here to the Appalachian Mountains and Asheville. And one last question for you. A lot of things I've noticed in Asheville with music, it starts not at 6, not at 7, not at 8, but at along about sundown.
Correct,
yeah. What is that? I want to be a local. What is along about sundown?
Well, it's when the work's all done, I guess, wouldn't you say, Bill?
I'd say that's right.
We get done working, so then we have time to pick music, dance square dances, and have a good time. And Bascom always said, along about sundown, we're the best you got, and come on.
Come on, indeed. From that French castle that started it all, bringing in the world's most talented architects, to the heart of the American South, to a work of art you can walk through, to those resourceful mountain women who started an art movement, and those English, Scottish, and Irish immigrants who created a whole new American style of music. There is plenty to be curious about here in Asheville. So, we'll see y'all along about sundown.